Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our second boot camp attempt. We're streaming on Facebook tonight and YouTube, and I believe Periscope or Twitter also. We tried this last Thursday night, and it went relatively successfully, so we're going to try it again tonight just to broaden our reach. These sessions will be recorded, at least one of them, and we'll post it to our parent boot camp resources shortly, probably tomorrow after we have a chance to look at it and maybe edit out some stammering like that. So I just want to share briefly who I am. My name's Scott Beebe. I'm the Executive Director of Digital Learning and Innovation. I was hired July 1 to come on board and support teachers and schools with remote learning and just technology in general. My role is to manage the IT information technology services as well as the instructional technology services. So I'm happy to be here, happy that you're joining us, and hope that you find tonight's information informative. We are continuing to put resources on the district website and the Parent Bootcamp page, so I'll share some of that with you as well. So our role tonight really is around some information and updates, including some of the resolution to some of the ongoing issues that we've had this first week of remote learning, and some changes in settings just to make things easier for kids, and provide some support to you through demonstrations and show you where some of those published resources are so that you have access to them even after the broadcast. So before we get too far into it, I want to make sure we introduce, who will be presenting to you tonight and what their roles are. So I think up first we have Janice.
Hi, my name is Janice Wintermeyer. I am an instructional coach for technology, and I primarily focus on our secondary teachers. And I think Rochelle is next.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Rochelle Betts. I too am an instructional technology coach, and I support K-5 elementary.
Hi, I'm Amy Jones. I am an elementary instructional coach housed at Timber Ridge Elementary School, and I also am an ELA or English Language Arts content specialist.
One more thing I forgot to mention before we get started. We've split the evening into two chunks. So this first 45 minutes, we're going to focus primarily on the elementary program, K5. And then the second 45 minutes, beginning at around 7:15, we'll shift our focus to secondary, because they are slightly different. There are some slightly different pieces of information to share. So if you're a secondary person and you want to tune out and come back at 7:15, that'd be awesome. If you're in elementary, just stick with us for the next 45 minutes and we'll move through. Okay, this is our agenda for this evening. Sorry, I sort of lost myself in Windows. This is our agenda for this evening. We're going to talk about online expectations for students, Zoom etiquette, that sort of thing, digital citizenship, that sort of thing, and how to navigate some of that. We realize that we are providing school, but we're also providing a window into your home. So we want to make sure we all understand how that works, and just some basic things to help make that a safer, smoother experience for everyone. We're going to go through some appropriate use and basic navigation of some of the district tools like ClassLink. We have a new one called Cami that kids have started using. That's a PDF editing and annotation tool, and some of the other materials and tools. And then we're going to really dig into how the courses at elementary are structured and why those folders are organized the way they are. It was really done with some intent behind it. And we'll demonstrate how you as a parent can use Schoology to keep on top of the things your students are doing or working on. And we'll have a demonstration of that from Amy, I believe. So that is our evening. We are monitoring the comments on Facebook, and if there are questions that come up, we try to address those if we can. If we can't, then we'll publish some information on the Parent Bootcamp page tomorrow to answer some of those. So speaking of the Parent Bootcamp page, Joe, if you could share my screen. We put together a guidebook and published that a couple of weeks ago on the district website. It was originally published in a really long scrolling document. I think it was 40 pages of scrolling. We realized that that wasn't the easiest way to navigate that document, so we've rebuilt that with mostly the same content, although we've added some, particularly in the technology section. So if you click on the Distance Learning 2.0 banner on the main district website, you will come to this page. We've split it into chunks to make that information more easily digested and easily found. So if you're interested in what the elementary schedule is, this is where we post that information. We've split it out: elementary, middle, and high school. The section we're primarily focused with this evening will be this technology and learning supports. And if you scroll all the way to the bottom of that, we've added a new one called Parent Bootcamp Resources. This is for you specifically. So I'm going to click on that and hope that I linked it correctly. Yep. So here you'll see information. This is where we'll post the screen recordings from this session, or last Thursdays if they're basically the same. But we've also put information and links specific to the parent audience. So things like Schoology Basics, if you're struggling or your kiddo's struggling, I see a typo, your kiddo's struggling to submit an assignment, there's a quick little video here that you can watch that will show you how to do that just as a first line of support. So we wanted to make you aware of that resource, and we will continue to add, as an instructional technology team, resources to this page over the coming weeks. Just as we hear more information or get questions that are similar, this is where we'll post those kinds of things so that you have access to it. We will also, at the end, I think, I have a slide that shows the help resources that we've provided in real time. And when we know there are, like this morning as an example, we know there are going to be tech issues from time to time. This morning we had a power outage over the weekend that took down our district network. And so we knew we were going to struggle to get connected, not just from the teacher standpoint, but likely some power outages in the area for students too. So we are trying to be very aware of the fact that there are going to be those kinds of issues from time to time, and being very lenient, I think, with the attendance requirements, particularly if a student's engaging in Schoology and we see the work coming in on that particular day, or you email your teacher directly and say, hey, my Wi-Fi was down this morning and we couldn't get on the Zoom meeting. We are here, and we're trying to connect. We will try to help in those situations. So please don't be afraid to reach out to us when those kinds of things are happening, and know that we are really working to be flexible around that. Okay, I think that's all I'm going to say about the parent resource page. So we've had week 1 is in the books, and we worked a lot last week to try to resolve some ongoing issues, and I wanted to share just a little bit about that. So there was initially a lot of frustration around Schoology and Zoom in particular, and it works differently on iPads and Chromebooks and Windows. It worked kind of differently across all 3 of those platforms. But what we found was Zoom was not always getting the credentials from Schoology. So kids would go to Schoology like they were supposed to. They would click on the Zoom link from within Schoology. One of the reasons we went with Zoom was the LTI integration with Schoology made it a little easier to create and manage those links for teachers, because you do it all from within Zoom. But what we discovered is if the links were not created with that LTI connection from within Schoology, they didn't pass the credential to Zoom when you clicked on the link in Schoology. So in other words, many of our teachers were creating the links in Zoom, pasting those into Schoology, and then the kids were not able to authenticate into Zoom, so you're getting this sort of vicious circle of logging in. So what we did was work, once we discovered that, we worked with our teachers to rebuild those links in Schoology. And I think we've got a lot of that cleared up now, if not all of it. We continue to work with a few who either didn't get the email or were just we're trying to work through all of it. The other thing that we noticed that Chromebooks were wiping the profiles. When we set up the Chromebooks in this district and most districts, they were a shared resource. So every time a student would log out or close the lid, it would log them out and wipe the profile from the machine. Well, what that did is it wouldn't allow passwords and login tokens to persist on the machine from session to session. So we made some settings changes late last week that should remedy some of that as well. I know the Chromebooks, a lot of them have really decent batteries that will last 4 or 5 hours in the day. The settings for the battery are a little different than the settings when plugged in we're discovering. So if you're having issues with it going to sleep really fast, it's probably that. It's probably because it's not plugged in. And we also changed a setting on the iPads. iPads work completely different than Chromebooks or Windows or Mac devices. They really want to work within the app world. They don't like working in the browser world. A lot of these tools, ClassLink being one of them, like to save cookies in the browser that allow you to log into other things. That's how that single sign-on works. iPads don't work that way. They don't allow us as many hooks into the devices. So we did make a change that will allow you to now turn on the password saving on the iPad so that you can save your student passwords right on the iPad and it'll log in. These are district provided tools. Obviously, we don't have any management on personal devices. So we changed some things, additional things on the Chromebooks. We don't put them to sleep for 4 hours. Again, battery settings and plug-in settings are a little different. So if you notice it going to sleep really quick, it's probably because it's running off of battery. And we pushed a change to put it when it goes to sleep. When you close the lid, it now will go to sleep instead of logging the student out. We don't have a way, because of how ClassLink works, when you've gone to sleep and you come back, you'll see your student's name on that. Just click the add person and log back in through ClassLink, and that should reset everything for the login tokens and get you going again. There's really no way for us to control that. That's just how they work. We did try to stretch that time out as far as we could so it wasn't happening so quickly. The other thing, in the iPad ClassLink app, there is a known bug apparently with that when you've been in it or you come back to it, you'll try to log in and it'll say district not found or I can't remember specifically the message. You have to click the back link, type in an SN, and you'll have to choose Snoqualmie Valley School District again. Again, that's a bug in the app, and ClassLink's working on a resolution, which we'll push as soon as we get that. That was related to the Zoom app signing issue, was up above with the Schoology links. We did have an issue with Zoom bombing, particularly the first couple of days, and then there was one instance of it on Friday where somehow the link got out. It was shared because those are only available in Schoology. And the way the settings are done, the security settings, we do have the settings to allow only students from Snoqualmie Valley School District with an active domain account, which is @students.svsd410.org, to connect to those classroom meetings. But that's not a forced setting. It is toggled on by default. But if a staff member or a teacher in particular wants to have a parent meeting or a meeting with an outside provider, we have lots of people who work with students in our school that teachers will interact with. That setting has to be able to be toggled off and on. So what we've done is we've worked with our teachers in the LTI tool in Schoology to ensure that they have that setting set in those meetings, because it's a meeting by meeting setting. So we've been cleaning up a lot of that over time. We sent out some reminder emails this morning, and Janice and Rochelle have been working with people all day to make sure that we get those settings set correctly that will keep these outside individuals from being able to come into a Zoom meeting with a generic Gmail account. It's happened at the high school a couple of times. One was on the news, I think, on Saturday or Sunday. And then we did, just literally before this meeting started, I made a change on the Chromebooks that'll start rolling out to put the bookmark as the for Launchpad to ClassLink as the home page, because we're seeing kids are closing out of ClassLink and then they're not sure how to get back to it. So we've just set that as the home page. And I also turned on the home button on the browser in the district Chromebooks, so the kids can just click that button and it will take them back to the Launchpad to launch into other apps, to make that a little easier for our kids and for you. So those are the issues that have been primarily elementary related, although the Zoom bombing, we haven't seen that really at elementary. That's been more of a secondary issue, but I wanted to make sure you know we are implementing security settings to address that. We actually had them already. We just need to make sure that we're using them in all cases. So that is that portion. I don't have the slideshow up, so I'm kind of dependent upon Joe. Okay. Thanks, Amy. You're up.
Yeah. All right. So I saw a couple of comments in the chats from YouTube and Facebook. We are getting both of those chats kind of live on our screen to be able to go through those as we are going. I noticed Scott addressing many of them as he was presenting. A couple of the comments addressed the schedule. And so for elementary, we really tried to look at and listen to a lot of the feedback that we got in the spring around schedules and understanding kind of how to. There was a desire for consistent schedules. There was a desire to have Schoology schedules be similar between grade levels so that parents or other people who might be supporting could support a little bit easier. So with Remote Learning 2.0, we have enlisted at the elementary level these folder schedules within Schoology. So one thing that's kind of unique about this is that it really is similar to elementary school bell schedule. So Schoology is kind of now our school building, our hallways, our classrooms, all wrapped into one. So thinking about that bell schedule, when the school bell rings, the teacher would open the door and greet the students. That is now essentially what is occurring during these Zoom meetings. So at the beginning of the day, if the Zoom meeting should start at 9, then thinking about that 9 o'clock is almost like that bell time, to where then the teacher would open the door and let students in. And if there were any stragglers, then they would be looking in the waiting room to let those students in as well. Knowing that there are also some of the comments were around having a single Zoom link that teachers would use and then let students in and out of that single Zoom link rather than changing Zoom links, which can sometimes be confusing for elementary students. The issue with that is that sometimes if students arrive early, especially to small group meetings, they might be waiting in the waiting room for a couple of minutes until their small group meeting starts, because that teacher would need to wrap up the previous small group meeting, those students would need to leave, and then the next group would come in. Also thinking about these folders within Schoology for elementary students are really like our school hallways. Meaning that just like school hallways are consistent, for elementary teachers, these folders are consistent. Where it might differ is that for individual classrooms, that is what the content is inside the folders. So just like in a regular school building, there might be different decorations in the individual classrooms. The desks might be configured a little bit differently. But all in all, we use the same curriculum. We go by the same Common Core state standards. Our activities might look a little bit different depending on the needs and the levels of the students in that classroom. For the schedule, there are really kind of two different times for ELA, or English, Language Arts, and Math. The core curriculum lessons are during kind of asynchronous or on your own time. Those are the pre-recorded lessons, and they are available for students and families to view before the small group time. So those on this schedule that's on your screen are from 10:40 to 11:05 for English Language Arts, and it is then again from 1:10 to 1:40 for math. We did hear feedback from parents asking for some flexibility in working with some asynchronous. So that could be where you are watching that with your child the night before or earlier in the day, as long as that content has been viewed prior to the small group setting, because that is when the differentiation time comes in and there is a blend of synchronous and asynchronous, or live and on your own, or possibly pre-recorded. During that small group time, which is a larger chunk of time, that is broken up into sections of small group with a teacher, the classroom teacher, which would be a live Zoom meeting. It could also include small group with intervention. So if your child receives WIN interventions in reading or math, EL services, or services from the student services or special ed department, that might occur during that time. Assessments might occur during that time. Independent skill practice, whether it be independent reading, writing, or independent math practice, as well as standards-based practice through our online tools, which we have Reading A to Z as well as Dreambox this year for math. And those are standards-based aligned, and they are pacing based on your child's progress. So that is an overview of our elementary schedule. And if you should have any further questions, then we can go, we'll find out information later about going into the parent boot camp area and hopefully getting those answered.
So just like Amy was talking about, that folder system in Schoology is like our physical school building and a bell schedule. And just as though it's school online, so is teaching students how to be good digital citizens. So at school, we teach them how to act appropriately as part of a greater school community and how to be a good school citizen. So online, as they learn and how they interact with many of the tools that they're learning, it's how do they use those appropriately and how do they interact with others appropriately and become a good digital citizenship. So in order to teach this, we rely on a particular curriculum that is used nationwide, and it's called Common Sense Education, and that's through Common Sense Media. Many parents already know about this because they have wonderful resources and information for parents to help support even online safety at home, as well as product reviews for different online games and different sites. So I encourage you to go check that out as well. So digital citizenship, just to be really clear on what it is that it's a way of interacting online. It's an interconnected environment that we try to help students understand what that means and how to be safe and how to act legally and ethically, which is highly important. Because what we find is that our students don't always realize that what they do online is real and it counts. They sometimes believe that because no one can actually see them, that sometimes they test behaviors and boundaries that they would never think about doing in a face-to-face environment. And so this is where digital citizenship comes into play even more so. Next slide. So the core foundations that we teach within the Common Sense Education curriculum are privacy and security, and it goes beyond just not sharing your password. It's really important for students to understand what that looks like, and especially as they're doing things outside of school, such as gaming and being on social media with their peers. There's several lessons that address several issues that are related to these types of environments. Digital footprint and identity. This really helps students understand that as soon as they get online, that their digital footprint starts and will always be throughout their course of their lives. And so they really need to think carefully about the choices they make. It also teaches them about relationships and communication, again, about social media platforms, and then just even working on shared projects together, or using, such as in Zoom or Teams or any of those platforms, how to use to chat appropriately. Another piece that Common Sense Media does a really good job of addressing is cyberbullying, digital drama, and hate speech. And as we know, there's been a lot of that going around just in the whole world around us. And so how do we help students understand the ramifications of their behavior? And it starts a lot earlier. So that's why we start with kindergartners in understanding what that looks like. And then it keeps moving up all the way through 12th grade of what those examples look like. And then again, it's identifying credible news and media literacy. So the premise for Snoqualmie Valley School District is that we base it on 4 main kind of pillars, as we call them. It's being respectful, being safe, being kind, and being responsible. And we always frame those in a very positive light because that's where we want to start. That, of course, that we expect students to be this way, and we wouldn't expect anything less. Next slide. So one of our wonderful district technology leaders has put together this wonderful video that will be used with all of our students in the student boot camp. This talks about and brings it on home to what digital citizenship looks like in Snoqualmie Valley, and especially in our online environment. Joe, would you start the video?
Welcome back, Snoqualmie Valley School District elementary students. We are so excited to start learning with you again. You are still going to get to see your friends and your teacher every day, but school sure looks a little different. The biggest difference, of course, is that you will be learning at home. But there are still lots of things that are exactly the same, like the expectation that you will be respectful, responsible, safe, and kind in this digital platform. You will remember that we have a special name for someone who can make respectful, responsible, safe, and kind choices while using the internet. It's a digital citizen. Every single one of us, teachers and students, are expected to be strong digital citizens in our online learning community. As a digital citizen in our Snoqualmie Valley School District online learning community, you have a responsibility to do your part to make it as strong as it can be. We know you can do it. Let's talk about what it looks like to show respect in an online platform. Did you know that one of the easiest ways to show respect is by giving other people a chance to talk and share? It's super easy to do. You are going to want to find the mute button, and when it is not your turn to talk, click it to turn off your microphone. That way, someone else can have their turn. When it is your turn again, you can turn your microphone back on. Everyone loves having their voice heard, but when everyone talks all at once, it is hard to learn. Let's show respect to our teacher, our friends, and ourselves by making sure your microphone is turned off at the right time and turned on when it is your turn to speak. We also want to show respect by taking care of our online learning tools and materials, like devices, so they are used in expected ways that help us learn. Another important way to show respect to your teacher and your friends is to give the person talking your full attention. That means your eyes are watching, your ears are listening, your voice is quiet or your microphone is muted, your hands are still, and your heart shows that you care. That's a fancy way of saying that you are being kind. You are used to doing this in the classroom, but when we are online, it is easy to forget, but it is still very important. Comments need to be respectful too. You are going to have lots of opportunities to leave comments or messages for your friends in programs like Flipgrid. Just remember, your comments need to be respectful. A good use of comments includes asking a question about something or giving a compliment about something that someone has done well. Comments should not be used to bring others down or laugh at someone. They should only use school-appropriate language. Just remember what we have learned from our digital citizenship lessons. Never say something online that you wouldn't say to someone in real life. If it is mean, don't say it. To be responsible during online learning, you will want to make sure you attend your online lessons and complete your independent work at home. Make sure you message your teacher if any of your learning links or tools are not working so they can help to get it fixed. We want you to be safe when you are using the internet too. To be safe, you want to make sure that you do not share your passwords with anyone except your parents. Stay in safe places that are just right for you. Think before you post, and tell your trusted adult right away if anything unexpected happens. Digital citizens are always kind. We use kind words with our friends and our teachers. We give compliments on other people's work. We are kind to others in our video meetings and other online activities. We can do this. We are digital citizens.
Okay, so that brings us to our next slide regarding Zoom etiquette. So we are asking families to help all of their students, but especially our very littles, select a place where they can Zoom and set up their district device or personal device in a very discreet place. We're asking that you be mindful that when you turn on the cameras, you look to see what is in the background. We're asking that people be mindful in case they have like decorative weapons on a wall, that those are out of sight. Also that signs, whatever is up on a wall, that if there is language, that it is appropriate, and that artwork that's kept to a minimum, that it wouldn't be considered offensive by somebody else. So school appropriateness, just like students get dressed to go to school, they should be able to put on a shirt or whatever that they would typically wear outside to play. We're asking that because it helps get the student in the mindset that it's not just rolling out of bed and walking over the computer, that this really is school and learning time. Also, we're asking, just as in the video, that camera and audio, so that we're asking students to keep the video on unless there's an extreme circumstance. And teachers are going over when they need to go ahead and click their camera off, and if they need to excuse themselves to go to the restroom or take care of something. And each classroom is working on what are those notification symbols that they're using to let their teacher know that they need to step away for a moment. We're also asking students that they need to use their real name. It's very important, because if a teacher does not recognize a name, they will not allow that student in. We're also asking parents that now that we've worked out many of the bugs with our Zoom links, please ensure that the student is using through ClassLink the Zoom link. We still have a few that are having their students use their personal Zoom application that's localized to the machine or in the cloud. And what happens is that sometimes a student will come into the classroom, but it will show the parent name. And teachers are instructed to not allow any names that aren't their students that they can recognize. So please be mindful of that.
Sorry, I was muted. I want to address, there were a couple conversations in the comment sections that I've been sort of following along with, so I wanted to address some of those before I jump into the Cami question. There's questions about using a single link or multiple links. We are working on that. There are some limitations just in how some of the software interacts with each other and or just works in general that make that a little more challenging than we had hoped, but we do recognize that easier is better, particularly for our little little ones. So many of our elementary teachers are using their personal meeting rooms. The downside of some of those and some of the settings that we have enabled intentionally are to not allow kids to join meetings before the teacher for that reason, because personal meeting room, and I don't remember what Teams calls it, but those rooms can be open for kids to join if you don't have the appropriate settings, and we really don't want kids in meetings without staff present. We wouldn't have them in classrooms without a staff member present, so that's kind of how we're treating that. But I do recognize that consistency is important, and that's part of the reason we have coaches in Snoqualmie Valley, is to be working with our teachers on some of those consistency issues. There's a couple of specific questions to logging in that I can address a little later. Josh, you may need to pull new policies on that Chromebook, and I can post that to the parent page just on how to do that. And Christian, they can be held in the waiting rooms. There's also some issues just with how Schoology and Zoom and Teams work within Schoology. And so we were part of the feedback that we got around the spring. I wasn't here, but I've been privy to the feedback, was that we wanted things in one place. We didn't want to have to go back and forth. So some of that's just a limitation with that, excuse me. And then I just want to reiterate on the camera on off thing. There are going to be camera on activities, particularly just building some social interaction with kids, but there are times when it's perfectly fine to have the camera off. I know that particularly households with multiple students running cameras at the same time, particularly in gallery view, where you're looking at all of the kids, can really eat up bandwidth. So we absolutely want to work with you on those things too, and so do your teachers. So just reach out or let us know that you have concerns about that, and we'll try to work with that. So Cami is a tool. I got some questions on this because it's been popping up for kids. We push it to district devices via Chrome. It's actually just a web app. So we've posted the link to the web app, but it does require a district account. So if your kids are using a personal device, they'll want to log into it with their district email address and password. And all it really is a web application for editing PDFs. Joe, if you can switch me over to my screen share, I'll show you it very quickly. There was a message popping up on screens that said we're under a trial. That's where the concern was coming from, which is a very valid concern from parents about what are you doing with why are you using trial software? Well, it really was just an issue of getting the PO through our purchasing department and getting set up with Cami. They put us on the free trial so that we had the full version of the software when we started the school year, but that message should be disappearing now. So Cami, that's all it really is. I've opened a PDF, just an article that I was reading, and you can OCR it. So you can do text to speech. So for some littles, if there's a passage of text that they want to read, you can bring it in, and it gives you the option to use OCR software right there that will read the text and convert an image. This was a scanned image into text, and then you can just highlight. I don't want to do it because it'll start reading. You can highlight the text and it will read it aloud, and you can actually speed up or slow down that as well right here with the timing. There's markup, highlighting, strike through, underlining, so you can code the text as you're reading. That's a skill that we teach kids to do so that they can make notes on the text right within the text and have those. We all, a lot of us did that in college, and we tended to highlight everything, so there is some discretion that needs to go with that. The commenting section actually allows for text comments, so if I selected the text, and I could just type a comment, but I also can record a voice comment, a video comment, or even a screen capture if I wanted to demonstrate stuff. So that gives kids a way to interact with the content or the text right within the document. That's a little more accessible to some kids. For students who either have a hard time writing or typing or sensory processing issues around that, they can record a comment right to their teacher. Teachers can also record the directions right within the document. So that's basically, there's some other tools, but they're kind of self-explanatory. And the signature, I don't know that it's a legal signature, but you can do a digital signature on documents this way as well. That's not really what we bought it for, though. It was really more for working with PDFs. So that's what Cami is. That's why we bought that for students, because it gives them a web app version of a PDF editing tool. And a lot of our curriculum materials come in PDF format, like secondary math curriculum. Those are all, the student work pages are all in PDF format. So that's why we have that. Moving on. Next slide, Joe, if we can go back to the slideshow. ClassLink. So ClassLink is a tool that we implemented for this year. It's a single sign-on, which is a bit of a misnomer because it doesn't actually single sign-on to everything that we want it to yet, but we're working on adding some things if it's possible. Really, what it allows us to do is if we can pass credentials to the software, in other words, if the software lets us, then we will create hooks into that so that you can sign on to that with that by signing into ClassLink and click on the button, and it'll take you right into that other software. There are some things, Joe, if we can switch to my screen share. My view will look just a little different than the kids will, but this is the basic login page. We are signing in with ADFS, which is Active Directory, but that's the email address and the passwords that were sent out. And you can, for K5, actually preschool through 5, you'll be able to sign in with a quick card, which is just a QR code that you hold up to the screen. I don't have one of those, so I'm just going to sign in with ADFS. First page it brings you to is the ClassLink Launchpad. Now, I have a whole bunch of stuff because I'm a ClassLink admin. Kids will see what we have rights for the kids to see. So if we don't have a software tool licensed for students, it won't show in their Launchpad. But basically all these are, some of them are links, like this is the link to the Cami web app that we put in here so kids could go directly to that. Other things it will sign you directly into Google Drive and ADFS. Right now we've built hooks into those so that the login information gets passed to those. And other curriculum resources like Dreambox, Raz Kids is another one that's used a lot at elementary. Those we have single sign-on to those. Some of them are still using Clever, but we can pass credentials to Clever to negotiate that as well, to get kids in without having to log into Clever as well. So that is what it's a bit of a misnomer to call it single sign-on, because it doesn't sign on to everything. But if it can, that's what we're trying to do, and we're trying to put the links here so kids aren't having to go over. The big one that kids use every day is Schoology, and that one is a single sign-on. We actually have it, if you look in my tabs, I actually already had Zoom and Schoology open because we have it set to auto-launch Schoology and Zoom for kids and get them logged into those immediately. But in order for that to work, you have to have the, find it, more tools. You have to have the ClassLink one-click extension installed. We push that to district devices, but you also could install that on your personal device, provided you're logged in with a district account. It will push those, open those automatically for you. And again, it works slightly different on iPads. It wants to open the app on an iPad, not necessarily in the browser. So we continue to work on some of that.
Okay, so
one question before we move on, Jennifer Chisholm, I'm not sure I pronounced that right, but you got a question about the QR and later to log in the password doesn't work. Yeah, that's a known issue. Whichever one you started with, that's what you have to do the next time. Or if you click on Add Person on the Chromebook, it'll pop open the whole login screen, and you can go back in that way with the quick card. So we do know about that. We are working with ClassLink to address that as well. Okay, sorry.
Scott actually mentioned a few of these already, but on the student devices, you'll see a lot fewer apps than what you saw on his. And so just to point out very quickly of what your students will see, you'll notice in their small group time or their intervention time, they'll be working with these apps such as Dreambox and Zern. These two are especially Dreambox is computer adaptive, and it allows students to work at their own pace and things get customized to them, and it's related to their math curriculum. And so is Zern. There's different videos available for them that walk them through different math procedures that they're already learning within their math curriculum. Of course, there's Schoology, which is where they find their daily schedules and their assignments that are posted, and there's Zoom links. And of course, you recognize Zoom because they can go directly through Zoom. RazKids and Savas Easy Bridge. Those are both two apps that are related to their ELA curriculum, and their Google Drive, where they can store assignments and work with collaborative projects and such. So Flipgrid is a tool that they use to help produce some of their work, and you'll be seeing some of their projects coming out of Flipgrid. And there's another one called Nearpod. I don't have it up here right now. And then STEMscopes is related to their science curriculum. Okay, next slide.
All right. So when your child logs in, if they are using a district Chromebook, they would go through the single sign-on to ClassLink to Schoology. And if they're using an iPad, then it would be through the ClassLink app. And what I am going to do is I am going to log in as one of my daughters. I have 4 daughters in the district, a 3rd grader, 4th grader, 8th grader, and 9th grader. So I asked my 3rd grader if I could borrow her login, and I'm going to log in as her to just go through a couple quick pieces with you all. I did see that some of the apps, some people are commenting that they don't see RazKids, or RazKids isn't working, or they don't see Savas. RazKids and Savas were, from my non-tech side, not playing nicely with some of our ClassLink and Clever sign-on. So they are still working on getting those set up. So when they are live, then your classroom teacher or the school will let you know. So please just know that those are in the works. So from the website, I am going to go to students because I am on my laptop and not on a Chromebook. And then I will click ClassLink, sign in. And then from here, like I said, I have my daughter's login. Students. And from her page, here are, sorry, my internet is a little slow here in my office at Timber Ridge. I'm on the Wi-Fi and it is going a little slow. So hopefully it will come up in just a second. If not, I can pass on to the next one and then come back to this. I'm not exactly sure why it's taking a little bit longer to load. So maybe, Joe, I will kick it back to Rochelle, and then I will come back once it's loaded up. And Rochelle is going to be talking about the parent side of Schoology.
Mm-hmm. So in Schoology, if you contact your student's teacher, they have a unique student code that is unique to your child. And so as you, if you have multiple children, please get their parent code from each student, or I'm sorry, each child's teacher. And then I'm going to show you where to go. So Joe, I'm going to have you have me take over. Okay, whoops, there we go. Okay, so when you go to the district page, if you click on the distance learning 2.0 information that Scott originally showed you, you scroll all the way down. There's a great resource down, way down. Oh, sorry, I was a little up right. Let's see, Schoology. If you click on this right here, There's lots of great information and parent tips and even a parent guide about Schoology that you can download. And then when you're ready to go ahead and log or create an account, you are going to go ahead and click, let's see, here. And you're going to click sign up and then go to parent. And after you've gathered all your parent codes, you're going to go through several prompts. And the great piece is that you only need one account as a parent to have all of your students managed under one account. And yes, each parent can have their separate account, but this will allow you to check in and be able to see what types of assignments your students are doing and ask them questions, because you can directly see what they're working on. The only difference between the parent view and the student view in Schoology is that parents will not have a submission button that their students will have when their students get ready to submit an assignment. Okay. So, Joe, I'm going to have us go back to the slideshow.
Okay, well, that does it for our elementary portion of this evening. We have some questions that we were not able to address online, but we will get answers to those if we can and post those to the parent page. Yeah, ClassLink appears to be having some issues, but we also had some Active Directory issues today, and I don't know if that's the problem, but I've got it up and running in a different window. So we're going to transition to secondary information. If you were here for the elementary, we're repeating most of the same content, but it's very specific to secondary because they have some different, their devices are different, and so some of the issues and some of the software is different on those. So if you're elementary and you want to sign off, that's great. If you're secondary, please hang around and we'll get going. Okay, so I'm going to reintroduce myself. We're going to introduce ourselves again because we may have a different audience for this section. I'm Scott Beebe. I'm the Executive Director of Digital Learning and Innovation for the school district. I was hired, started on July 1 of this school year. I was a teacher, a principal, IT person in a couple other districts, and I'm really excited to be in Snoqualmie Valley. I think all of us would rather our kids be back in school. I have a 15-year-old that started high school today at home, and that's going to be interesting. I don't have little ones anymore, but I feel your pain. I have 3 kids of my own, and I imagine that is really a struggle for the little ones. So our job as instructional technology people and information technology is to try to make that as easy as possible and try to keep the tech out of your way so that the kids can get to the learning as quickly as possible. So I'll let the rest of the team introduce themselves, and then we'll go through the agenda really quickly.
Hi, my name is Janice Wintermeyer, and I am an instructional coach for technology. I primarily focus on our secondary teachers and help with their technology implementation, but I do help the district K-12.
Hi, I'm Rochelle Butts. I'm in the instructional technology support for K-5.
Hi, I'm Kristen O'Riordan. I am a social studies teacher and a district technology leader at Chief Canham Middle School.
Hi, my name is Morgan Espeland, and I'm also a district technology leader, and I'm also an 8th grade science teacher at Snoqualmie Middle School.
Oh, and Scott's on mute.
Thank you. Sorry. I'm still trying to get the ClassLink page back up. We did put together in August, I can't remember the exact date that it was published, but we put together a parent guidebook for this remote learning or distance learning 2.0 process. And Joe, if you can switch to my screen share, that would be great. So that document, when we published it, it was a shared document, and we all built it in different groups with different information, and so it got to be a pretty unwieldy 40-page long document. So what we did is we rebuilt that as a website so that it was easier to navigate and grouped into like information, and that's what you're looking at now. When you click on the Distance Learning 2.0 banner on the main website, this is where you're going to go. We are primarily going to work tonight in this green section, which is technology and learning supports. And really what we did was build a boot camp resources for parents. So within that guidebook now, there is a section just for you that we've posted information about tonight, but we're also starting to post tutorial videos or how-tos or links to the app parent that we'll talk about in a little bit, so that you have access to some of those. There was a question earlier about learning to use Kami. I linked that today. I put some information. They have great resources on the Kami website for how to learn some of that functionality. So I've linked that for you here. This is where we're going to continue to post things. So if we have questions tonight that we don't get to that we're going to answer later, we'll put some information up on this parent boot camp page. So if you want to bookmark that, that would be great. I put a bit.ly in the presentation for tonight, or you can find it on the district website just by going to that Distance Learning 2.0, scrolling to the green section and clicking on the parent boot camp portion of that. Okay, next slide, Joe. Sorry, I am navigating to it also. So we have some outstanding issues. We talked about some at elementary that were more specific to elementary. I just want to address some of the ones that are more specific to secondary. As many of you probably know, we had an incident of Zoom bombing last Friday at the high school. I think it was a freshman, same age as my son. Somebody from outside the school district or somebody that used a generic Gmail account was able to gain access into the classroom and post some things into the chat that were then, I think, spread on social media. Somebody screenshotted that and spread it on social media. So I wanted to speak a little bit about what we've done to address that, but also the security settings that we do have in place as a district. So we started working with teachers on Friday, actually, to rebuild some of the links and make sure that the security settings are enabled for the links. So the one that we really wanted to make sure that we have working is the registered SVSD domain users only. You can limit who can log into meetings based on the login information that they provide. And that was enabled, but it wasn't quite set for that specific link. So we've been working through that. The reason we don't force that on every meeting is because that would eliminate the opportunity to have Zoom meetings with parents and or outside providers. We have quite a few people that work with students in our schools that interact with teachers and staff that we need to be able to have those meetings with, since we can't have face-to-face meetings right now. We also have the waiting room enabled, which allows the teacher some control and doesn't allow kids into the room before there's a staff member there to let them in. And we have some settings applied to the student user group that actually it'll allow them to start a meeting, but no one can join that meeting, not with a district ID account. We can't prevent kids from signing up for their own accounts, but we are trying to put some limitations on the district provided accounts. We also disabled by default the chat functionality, but we did leave that as a teacher option, so they can re-enable that. But we wanted to get some information out this morning about how to manage that a little differently, so that it's not a direct access kind of thing. So we toggled that setting off, but that is something that teachers can re-enable because there are valid instructional uses of the chat in these tools, and we wanted to make those available for teachers also. And then we have some very specific things to Acer student devices. Our students grades 6 through 12 are provided a district-provided Acer Flip 11 digital inking Windows device. And we have frequently things like the microphones will stop working. We can reset some of that remotely. And the way to get help with that is to call the helpline. Now that line gets pretty overwhelmed, or was last week. We started to see that coming back to a more manageable number. We do have multiple people answering that on top of other work. So our technicians who are building based are also manning the hunt group that rings that phone. So if you get put on hold or get to the hold, don't feel like holding, leave a voicemail and we will return that. The other way is just emailing that SVSD info which Joe has graciously put on the screen for us. And we are monitoring that as well, including some of us look at that over the weekend. We can't always respond right away, but we are reading those, and we'll try to get back to you as quickly as possible. Then the other issue we've heard quite a bit is Chrome extensions not loading. So we'll talk about some software later that are basically Chrome-based extensions. Those will only be pushed to student devices if the students are logging onto the Chrome browser with a district account. That's different than logging onto the computer. So that generally is the issue. If the extensions aren't pushing, it's because the students either are logging onto the Chrome browser with a personal account, although I'm not sure they can do that, or they're not logging into it all with a district account. That actually, if they're on their personal device and they log into the Chrome browser with their district ID, their district AD credentials, those extensions will push to that also. So those are the main issues at secondary that we've heard, other than just internet access issues in general. And please realize we understand there are going to be things. We had a windstorm last night that knocked the power out at Mount Si, and today the whole district network was down when I got to work this morning at 7 o'clock, which we were able to get back up. But we know those things are going to happen, or there's connectivity issues that are going to happen. So best way to deal with that is engage in Schoology when you can. Teachers will be looking at that. Is work actually coming in from kids, and looking at that favorably as attendance, but also just email your child's teacher and say, hey, our internet blew up for an hour today and we couldn't join the third period class. So we'll be understanding about those things. So another tool that we've added that is just now starting to get out is called Kami. Kami is a PDF editing and annotation tool that allows students on their district devices or their home devices, if they use a district account to log onto it, to edit and annotate PDFs. So Joe, if you can switch me over to the screen share, I'll show just a little bit about Kami. It is a web app, so it works in the browser. You don't need any special software. The extension that we push to the student devices, if they're logging on, really is just a link. We also put that link in class links so they can just click on it from there too and load into Kami. But what Kami allows kids to do is, this is a scanned PDF. It has OCR software built in, which is optical character recognition, and it will change the text to a readable format. So it has a built-in text-to-speech reader. But if I select, you have some options to slow it down or speed it up, and you can change the voice. But and it is a computer-generated voice, so it's not a real person reading it. But it can help kids with who have perhaps a reading disability or have a hard time with the text on the page, be able to get some of that content read to them directly. And then it just has markup tools, so it has highlighters and strike through and those kinds of things, so that kids can code text. That is a skill that we teach kids, and it is important for academic learning to be able to code your text, underlining, change the colors, that kind of thing. The comment function is kind of nice because it has some different tools. I can select a passage and I can leave a typed comment, but I also can leave a voice comment, a video comment, or even do a screen share and capture something I want to share right within the document. So teachers can leave directions or demonstrations to kids right within a PDF and share that out, or kids can do the same in reverse to a teacher. So one of the reasons we looked at something like this was a lot of the secondary math curriculum has PDF files that we can provide to students, and we needed a way to interact with those. So on their device, the kids could use the drawing tools or the equation tools to answer a math problem right in the PDF and submit that back to Schoology. There's some other functions I won't spend a lot of time on: shapes, eraser, images. You can import images, and then there's a signature function, which I'm not sure is a legal signature, but you can sign a PDF using the Kami tool. Kids were seeing a message that said they're on the trial version. That's true, they were. It wasn't because we weren't going to buy it. It was because it took a while for the PO to get through. Kids, there's a question about kids can use OneNote. This is another option, and it was K-12, so the kids at elementary school don't don't necessarily have OneNote, but that is another option, particularly in math, and a lot of teachers, I think, are using that. Let's see. That is basically Kami. So if you see that Circle K thing, that is what that tool is. So back to ClassLink. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to show this because we seem to be having an authorization problem. Oh, there it goes. So ClassLink is a tool that we added. Let me put this over here. It's a tool that we added this year because of feedback from the spring. Actually, it was for a couple of reasons. The feedback from the spring was the main one. But we have so many systems now that we're rostering student data against. All of those data systems require synced data from Skyward, and Skyward isn't because we don't house our data, we're dependent upon WSIPSI, which is the co-op that provides that, to create these custom extracts, and then anytime you have to make a change, you have to re-customize the extract. So what part of it does is a rostering server that allows us to build the extracts ourselves to populate these systems with rostered student data. But the other thing that it does is create a single sign-on for things that we have purchased and or have licensed at the district level, and have the ability to create a hook into. So there are some things, oddly enough, Skyward being one of them, that we don't have the ability to create that authentication hook into because there just isn't access to it. We're not allowed to do that. So we've put a link in there, but the credentials for that have to be entered separately. But if it is something like Schoology that we have the ability to build a connector to, we will do that, and it passes the credentials straight to Schoology, so they're not having to log in with those credentials multiple times. So that is what we did for ClassLink. It was meant to be a little easier. We actually didn't get onboarded on this until late August, so we're still sort of working through some of the bugs with it, but we've been able to put things like Office 365, Google Drive, those are all single sign-on authenticating against Active Directory. Savas Easy Bridge. This is there it is. This is a neat one we're working on for our CTE, one of our Joe, who's running the show for us tonight, CTE class, to do some piloting of virtual machine that can run Adobe applications for the CTE program. So kids will have access to those things from home and not have to rely on a computer lab at school. So there are some other things that we're trying to, there's a question about Flash. Yeah, that's a known issue. We do, most of the major browsers now are ending Flash support, so that's becoming a bigger and bigger issue, but we can publish some materials around that to try to enable that. It has to be done to the user level. It's not something we control at the district level. So that is the basics of ClassLink. The kids won't see everything that I'm seeing because I have whole district access. They'll see what we have licensed for them at that particular grade level. So things like RAS kids, you're not going to see that at the grades 6 through 12 because that's an elementary specific tool. So just be aware of that. And I'm going to turn it over to Janice.
All right. I'm just going to address a little bit around some background for secondary information and a couple pieces just that we want to cover for you guys tonight. So one thing that we were really fortunate was we were able to really hold some student focus groups in the spring. We worked with a lot of parents through our work groups, and then administrators and teachers. And two things that were really prevalent that were really clear is that we really wanted students and parents to have some specific training. So tonight we are hosting, obviously, our parent boot camp. But this week we also launched our student boot camps for our secondary level. So our middle school is launched today, and I believe our high school is going to run theirs on Thursday. They are getting some short training in Zoom etiquette and expectations, use of district provided tools. They're also getting some Schoology training. So there's about a 15-minute Schoology video that helps them be able to customize and set up their Schoology so it works most efficiently for them. And they also got a little bit of a tutorial, a real quick one on their device, and just some features on their device that they can use to navigate those computers as well. So that's really exciting that we're able to offer both students and parents a little bit of overview and information. And then another thing we wanted to address just a little bit tonight is the idea of our course structures and remote learning at the secondary. So if you were here for the elementary, you heard Amy talk about kind of the elementary folders and the structure of their schedule. In our secondary courses, it obviously looks a little different than that face-to-face learning. We have those full class periods as well as that processing time, kind of the shorter periods in the afternoons. So our courses are going to look a little different this year. With us only seeing our students twice for those full class periods a week. And then those shorter times, the demonstration of learning can look a little bit different. We are able to kind of assess student learning in a variety of ways that maybe we didn't in a traditional classroom. So that's kind of exciting with the addition of our technology tools, as well as utilizing the class itself and the verbal demonstrations of learning or things that happen in the moment in small group and collaboration work. So I just wanted to kind of touch on a couple of those things as we look at scheduling and grading that was going to look a little different at the secondary level, just because we have less time with our students, but we're going to maximize the time we do have with them. So, yep, thank you, Joe. And then we're going to kind of move into Schoology. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Schoology and parent codes and some of these pieces. And then we have a parent who's going to give us a little demo of that parent view, because it does look a little different than the student view, but is really similar. So first, with parent codes, similar to elementary school, you can get your parent code from any classroom teacher, building secretary, counselors. They should all have a list. Every student has a code. So every student has a specific, unique parent code for that student. The nice part of Schoology is once you're logged in for the entire duration of your time at SVSD. So if you have an elementary student that logged in last year, you don't need a new code. You don't need any course codes. You're able to see everything your student sees as you move through the years. You can sign up and add students through our district website. There's some information under the Schoology page under the guidebook that Scott was talking about, or you can sign up right on Schoology.com with that code. And then Kristen's going to show you that parent view. Parents do have a view-only view, so you're going to see the majority of things, but you obviously can't submit assignments like a student can or anything like that. And then I'll come back and talk a little bit about that student view and how to. So I'm going to turn it over to Kristen, and she's going to give you a little bit of a parent view of Schoology.
Okay, my name is District. So I wanted to kind of start with where you would go to originally sign up and log in. So you can go just to Schoology.com. If you are new to Schoology and you just got your parent code, you're going to click on sign up here, click on parent, and then it's actually going to have you enter that individual code. It's not going to do it because I already have entered mine, but it will have you enter the individual code for your student, and then you will have access to Schoology from that point forward. So this is my oldest daughter here, but I have 3 daughters. So if you go over here to the name in the top right corner, you can click here, and this is where you can add students. So if I had another child that I needed to add, I would just click on that and then enter their individual child code in here, and then they would be accessible through the same login and page. So you can see here, we've got all 3 of my girls right here, and I can just move between these, move between them to see the information in their Schoology. Once you're in, you can see, if you're over here on student activity, you'll see the feeds of the updates that teachers are putting in. So most teachers are putting information in daily, definitely weekly, but often teachers are putting in, daily what's happening in class. So you can just scroll through and see each individual teacher's comments and, find out what happened in class today. You can also see, I'm going to go to Ruby because I could see that she had submitted something earlier. Let me see if I can find it. So here it says, Ruby O'Riordan submitted an item. So I know that she submitted an assignment that she had. So this is where you can view one area that you can view those updates all in one big scroll. The other thing that you can do once you're in here is you can see over here, there are assignments. So you could be looking at, okay, this is, an assignment here that is overdue, is due on, or it's due Tuesday, September 8th, wasn't submitted. You can see here upcoming events that are, on their schedule. So I'm actually going to go to my high schooler because it's a little bit more robust, her teachers' activities, because you can get a sense of that, hopefully. This will also be where if teachers have put in an assignment, it will come up on that upcoming page. You can also see events that may have been added in there. So students can even add in on their calendar their own items that would come up in this upcoming area as well. So you can scroll there. You go up here to courses. So courses are their classes. This is where you're going to be able to see all of their individual classes. So if you want to check on one class, you can, go into that one class and then see specifically that class's updates, materials, grades, all of it will be accessible there. One thing that I do think is important to point out, your students have done a great job of finding their Zoom links, but those are all posted in materials. So you will see teachers have this little, it's like a little ruler here, and it will say, AM sessions, PM sessions, some might say Zoom links in here, and they would click on their Zoom links here to access their classes. And then also in materials is where you're going to see folders for that particular class. And teachers will organize those folders by unit or weeks, and you can click into them and see what assignments they might have within those folders. So you can kind of see discussions, you can see assignments that they might have. There might just be instructions in here in those folders. That's in the material section here. The other place you can go to in the individual course is the updates. And this is a place that you can just see the specific update for that specific class. So the first place that I showed you where you saw the student activity with all of the teachers kind of, together, you can see all of the updates. But if you just want to focus on one class, you can go in and kind of see what those teachers are saying there. So back to courses here is where you would kind of go through and see all of that. The other thing, I want to make sure I'm not forgetting anything here. You can see their grades. So you could click on grades in two places, either up at the top or here on the left, and it would show you, what their grades were for that particular class. And then the last thing that is here is they have a calendar. So this feature up here in the top right, if you click on that, it's their calendar. Every time teachers load an assignment into Schoology, it populates on their calendar. Students can also add things to their calendar. And this is just a great place if you want to get a view for the week. All of their assignments from all of their classes will come up here. One thing today that the students learned at middle school in the student boot camp is they can color code these classes. So, language arts could be blue and math could be yellow, so you could kind of get a sense of that. And they learned how to do that today in their boot camp. But this is a great place to just look and get an idea of what's coming up for the week.
I'm going to hop in and just answer the most recent question that I see in the chat, just because we're on the calendar page, and it talks about the idea of class schedules built into the calendar. In theory, that sounds like a really fun idea, and we have toyed with different ways to post on the calendar. But when a secondary student, at least especially for secondary, has 6 or 7 classes every day, that calendar tends to fill up really quickly. So we really focus on, what are the things they need to see on there, and what are those kind of due dates and those important pieces. And then once we do teach them to color code or add their own things as needed, that will help kind of build that in. And so that's been really useful to kind of teach them that real, how to view their calendar in the most efficient way for them. And then the second thing that sort of touches a little bit on the calendar and on the grades, there's also a question in the chat that asks about Schoology versus Skyward and which one to check. So I just want to touch on that for a second. Sorry, Kristen, I jumped in.
That's all right. No.
So The Schoology versus Skyward question is a great question. Many teachers are using the Schoology gradebook, although it is not required. Our Schoology gradebook does sync to Skyward, so those who are using the Schoology gradebook, the grades should look the same in both Schoology and Skyward, as long as they've synced them over. And sometimes teachers will wait till they finish grading a whole assignment or a couple things to push them over. There should be some communication from teachers as to which gradebook they're using, or letting kids know where the most up-to-date information is. But for the most part, teachers are using, the majority of them are probably using the Schoology gradebook at secondary level. And then even if they were not getting assignments submitted, they can also add different, grade columns or assignments so that the calendar itself will populate, even if the assignment itself is not in Schoology. Maybe it's in OneNote or something else along those lines. So just wanted to touch on that. And then the last thing I wanted to say before Kristen hops off too, but is the thing we see quite, sorry, Kristen, thing we see quite frequently from the parent view is across the top of her screen, there was that light blue bar that says Olive O'Riordan, this one's Olive. That is an indicator that you are viewing it as a parent. And so a lot of times we'll get, I'm trying to submit and I don't see any submit button and my student is stuck. Sometimes you're logged in as a parent and you don't realize because it looks like you're logged in as the student. So that blue bar across the top is always the indicator that you are logged in as a parent. And so I don't know, Kristen, was there anything else on your list before we move on from your?
I think that was it.
All right, perfect. Yeah. Thank you. And then I wanted to also touch on, there was a third thing in those comments that I wanted to touch on that also goes with this last bullet point on this student view and how-tos. So we did run the student boot camp, like I said, at middle school today and at high school at the end of the week. In addition to those 4 videos that they're able to view on the YouTube channel that we're streaming to, we've also built a student tutorial playlist. It's new, it's in the works. So give us a little while to kind of really build it up, but we've started to embed in there different little quick tutorials for how to submit different types of assignments, whether it's a Schoology assignment, turning in a Google Doc to an assignment, different kind of various options. Some OneNote, there's a few OneNotes, how to access OneNote. So that's a great place for students to start looking as we move through that, and we'll continue to build those up in those short tutorials for students on that YouTube channel. We're working on it. It is new, so give us a little time to get kind of rolling with that. And then this kind of also pops back to that question. There was a question in the chat about Cami versus OneNote. So we have teachers using both, and they both integrate really well with Schoology. I think those who are maybe not everyday OneNote users are leaning a little towards Cami sometimes because there is two-way pass back with Cami. So teachers can assign through Cami and have it submitted and be grading right in Schoology, whereas those teachers in OneNote every day, they have those assignments there, and it's just more teacher preference about whatever way is easiest to grade for them and to view student work and whatever features they need. So there's just a couple pieces. And I think I'm going to turn it over to Morgan in just a minute. We're going to cover app parents. So there's a question about screen monitoring for parents. So this is perfect timing. We were super fortunate last year to launch our one-to-one at the secondary level. And with that one-to-one, we also were able to launch 2 sort of devices, or 2 tools. One is class policy, which we use when we are in face-to-face. And since we are not in face-to-face right now, we have turned that completely over to the parent monitoring app. And Morgan's going to talk a little bit about what that looks like and how to access student devices at home.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Janice. Yes. So one of the great ways that you can monitor your student's device and what they're doing at school and then after school as well is using this app. I'm an 8th grade teacher at SMS, but I also have 2 boys in the district. I have a 7th grader here at SMS and a high schooler, a freshman. And so when I'm here at school working, I am able to, on this app, I can look at what they're looking at on their device at all times. And it's real-time data. Basically, the app is taking like live screenshots of what they're looking at on their screen, and it's just continually refreshing. So you can see exactly what your student is looking at on their device in school. So so you can use this with an Android device, an iOS, or a Windows 10 device. And it's a really cool, there's some really cool features. I didn't really use it at all last spring. I put it on my device, my phone, but I didn't really utilize it much. But now that I'm here at school and my boys are at home most of the time, I'm able to check in on them and see what they're doing. So some of the major features that this app has are screen monitoring, and I'm going to show you what it looks like. I can't do a live demo, but I'm going to show you some screenshots from my screen. There's a screen lock feature where you can lock their screen if you're like, if it's after school and you want them to take a break from their screens, you can lock it so they can't do anything on it. And then you can also look at their web history. What are they looking up? What are they searching on their device? And so you can also see that, which is really good. Next slide. So on the left here, these are a couple app features. On the left, if you look, there's a screen monitoring feature. So I took this last week and I was at school 1:48 p.m. and I was checking to see what my boys were up to at home. And I could see both of their screens at the same time. So I could see my 7th grader, Henry, I could see that he was doing a Padlet at school. And I could see that my son, Jake, at the high school was about to log on to another Zoom call. And if I had stayed on and kept watching that, I would see, as Henry would shift through. It was kind of funny because as Henry was getting ready to get onto his Zoom call earlier, I could see him fixing his hair. And, I could see him fixing that before he actually joined the Zoom call. And I had pictures of him, like I had screenshots of him doing that. And I could see him getting ready to get on his Zoom call. So it was kind of entertaining, but I could see exactly what he was doing and I could make sure they were in their classes and they were participating. The other cool feature with this app on the right-hand side of the screen is the web filter and history feature. So on the left, you can put in websites that you want to block your student from viewing. So for example, I just did as an example, I put YouTube in and then you can block it and it'll tell you that it's blocked. And then if you want to remove the block, you just click the minus sign at the bottom of the app and you would put, and then it would take the block off. So the one thing to be aware of is you really want to be careful on what websites you do block, because there might be a chance where a teacher might use YouTube to show up like a learning video. So some of us do that. I've used those in science classes. So just making sure, because that could hinder them in class. But if there's something that's not school related that they're spending a lot of time on, you can definitely block it. The other neat feature is the history feature. So I can see on my son Henry's device, I can see all the things, all the different websites that he's searching, and it gives me a timestamp. And so this was the first week of school, and you can see he was constantly going into Zoom and Google and a little bit of YouTube there. So I can also look at, well, what's his web history, during school and after school. All right, next slide, please. And then the last two features I want to highlight are the screen record. So another cool thing you can do as a parent is you can actually record what they're doing on their screen for a certain block of time. So you can set it for after school hours. You could set it for the entire day. You could set it for just during school hours. And so you can set the exact times you want it to be recorded. And then after that time period, you will get there's like a little link you can click on within the app, and it will basically have like a screen, like it'll kind of go fast forward through all their screenshots throughout the entire day of what they've been looking at on their device. So you can see, are they in their classes? What are they looking at? During their classes, are they in their class? Or are they on another tab looking at something they shouldn't be? So that's a kind of a neat feature. The last one I want to highlight is the screen lock feature. So if your student after school is, you can set these different screen locks. You can type in a personalized message. And so I just made 4 that you can see on the right. I have one that says, I love you, time to take a screen break, lights out, study time, or time for dinner. So what happens is when you do this, it literally locks their screen. It's black. They can't do anything on it. And I tried this with my son Henry last week. It was on Wednesday when he didn't have a class, but it was before advisory. So I saw that he was looking at YouTube, and just to see how it worked, I locked his screen, and he like freaked out on me, and he like texted me. He's like, Mom, what's going on with my computer? And so I said, that was me. I said, I just locked your screen. Why don't you take a little screen time break? And then I ended up going in and unlocking it for him. So this could be something you utilize outside of school, and monitor what they're doing. Or at nighttime, you can say, we're done for the night. So those are the main ones.
Awesome. Morgan, thank you so much. And just to let everybody know, we did add this to the Parent Bootcamp page. So there is a link to the website where you can access. If you download App Parent, you do not have to do anything to your student's device. You can sign up with the email that is registered to you in our Skyward Family Access system, and you will be able to connect yourself to your student and access App Parent. There's also an email at the bottom of the App Parent website that Joe just put on the screen for us that goes to AssistX, which will help. They will help you if you run into any issues. And there was a question in the chat about whether or not it works on outside district devices. So it does only work on district devices. So I just wanted to put that out there. And it has to be our Windows devices. So if you're watching and you're on a district Chromebook, it's not going to work on that. Only our one-to-one Acer Windows device is what it is attached to. And I think that was the question I wanted to answer. So you can have multiple accounts. I think like if Morgan had a spouse or somebody who wanted to also add that, they could also be monitoring their student's device. So it's not single user or anything like that. Yep. So I think thank you, Morgan, for that information. And I think we're bringing Scott back to wrap us up in here.
That's pretty much the content for tonight. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I just wanted to address one more thing. We don't have access to that when the kids are off network. It's a partner tool to the class policy tool that's used during school on network, but that is not something we as educators have access to when the kids are off network. That is a tool specifically for parents. So I just wanted to make that point of clarification. The other piece is that it came up earlier in the chat, and I just forgot to answer it then, was the question about Zoom and Teams. I've answered that a couple of times, but it really came down to one, an issue of timing, and then some integration with Schoology kinds of things. But there's nothing wrong with Teams. We are continuing to use it internally in the department so that we stay on top of it. They've released some great new features. I was working with a teacher today on the live captioning, which is in preview. There's great stuff coming there too, but it was an issue of timing and the feature set that we felt we had to have when we were developing the professional development with our teachers. So Linda, you asked a question about how do we log into App Parent. It needs to be the same email that you have in Skyward as your parent email. So it's tied to that particular piece. And Kristen, there is a way to add a monitor to an Acer. I don't remember it off the top of my head, but we will post it. It's a keyboard shortcuts because we can't get to the settings that allow that to turn on. Janice, you may know, but I don't remember it.
It's either Windows key D or Windows key P. I forget which one, and that will let you change the display. It's Windows key D, and it will let you change the display to duplicate. Or
yeah, it's D or P, but I can't remember either. So we'll post that on the Parent Bootcamp page. But thank you everyone for joining us. We'll read through the comments, and if there's questions there that we need to answer, we'll try to answer those on that Parent Bootcamp page in the next day or two. So appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.